CreepyCorner stories.
Hey folks, before we dive into tonight's stories, I want to give a huge thank you to Kieran Tibbetts and Lisa Collin for supporting the channel and being amazing members. So if you enjoy what you hear tonight, you're in the right place. Now, grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and let's step into another amazing night. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. What kind of story hits you the hardest? The ones that feel too real, or the ones that could actually happen to someone you know? A dark web archaeology group found a sealed room beneath the Vatican. They hired me to open it. I wish I never saw what was inside. Alright, so, first off, I know how this sounds, but no, I wasn't on the dark web looking for creepy ancient death cults, or some Dan Brown level secret society that eats people under the full moon, or whatever. I wasn't even looking for anything remotely like that. I was bored, like 3 Red Bulls deep, 2 a.m., scrolling Discord servers, falling into YouTube rabbit holes about the history of the Knights Templar, because some algorithm thought I needed that in my life. Anyway, that's when I got the message. It came through Instagram, of all places, and I know who even DMs people on Instagram about archaeology, but the account had like 7,000 followers, mostly reposts of historical oddities and abandoned places. The username was just @forgotten.glyphs, no bio, no website, but some posts had eerie videos of ruined bunkers in East Germany, collapsed subway tunnels in Argentina, a flooded underground cinema somewhere beneath a mall in Tokyo. Cool stuff, creepy, but artsy. The DM just said, "You work with locks, right?" Which, yeah, I do. I'm a locksmith in Rome, 2nd gen. My dad did high-end work for the embassy district before retiring. I mostly get calls to break into antique safes that spoiled expats forget the combos. Too, I replied with a thumbs up. Honestly, didn't think much of it. Then they sent another message instantly. Would you be willing to consult on a unique excavation project? Paid, of course. All expenses covered. Now, I've had weird job offers before. Once a guy from Milan wanted me to unlock a chest that he claimed belonged to Mussolini. Another time, I cracked a rusted vault under a villa in Tuscany and found hundreds of creepy porcelain dolls inside. But this one, it felt different, almost too polished. I asked where the job was. They sent one word: Vatican. I laughed out loud. Thought it was a joke. Maybe some clout-chasing TikTokers trying to prank me into trespassing or something. But then, the next day, I got an email, a legit one, like, at spqr-dispatch.org legit. Attached to it was a letter of confidentiality stamped by the Pontifical Commission for Sacred Archaeology, with a Vatican watermark. Here's where I should have said no, but I didn't. A week later, I was standing outside the Porta Sant'Anna gate in Vatican City, holding a guest badge that said, Technical Consultant, Archives. I wish I could say I felt important. Honestly, I was shaking. The guards didn't smile. The air smelled like wax and old stone. They led me through tunnels I didn't know existed, past rooms full of statues that looked like they'd blink if I stared too long. Eventually, I was introduced to the team, just 3 people. Dr. Marcel Gruner, German archaeologist, probably mid-40s, very serious, spoke in clipped English, like he was always low on patience. Lucia Morelli, Italian, early 30s, digital historian, super intense, twitchy eyes, always looking over her shoulder like someone was watching. And Father Silvano, a silent tall priest in a black cassock. He never said a word, just carried a worn rosary in one hand and what looked like a taser in the other. They explained that during renovations beneath the Archivum Secretum, the secret archives, ground-penetrating radar picked up an anomaly, an empty space behind a sealed wall under the oldest part of the catacombs, older than Constantine's basilica. When I asked why they didn't just drill it open, Marcel looked weirdly uncomfortable. Lucia answered instead. The wall isn't just sealed. It's locked, mechanically. 5-point mechanism. We think it was designed to never open again. I asked why they wanted to open it now. Lucia looked at me dead in the eyes and said, because it started vibrating. Okay, full stop. That's the first moment I felt it. That cold finger of what the hell am I doing here traced down my spine. But I played it cool, took a deep breath. They showed me footage. Grainy, black and white, but unmistakable. Dust falling from the ceiling of a sealed corridor as something behind the stone hummed, like a mechanical growl deep underground. They said it started 4 days ago. They didn't know why. 2 nights later, we went down. No phones allowed. No signal that deep anyway. They made us put everything in RFID blocking bags. The only light came from industrial flood lamps mounted on tripods, casting long shadows down walls covered in Latin script and faded frescoes. The door, if you could call it that, was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Imagine a stone circle, maybe 10 feet across, with 5 protruding arms like an ancient vault dial covered in rust and ash. Symbols etched into the metal that weren't Latin, Greek, or Hebrew. Some looked like Egyptian cartouches. Others, I swear to God, one looked like a QR code I worked for 3 hours in silence, deciphering the lock, testing the pressure plates, figuring out which sequence wouldn't trigger what looked like blowback mechanisms. Lucia hovered nearby, recording everything on a DSLR. Father Silvano just muttered prayers. Then something clicked. All 5 arms retracted. The circle shuddered, groaned, then slowly began to rotate. Behind it, the air changed, like something had just exhaled. And that's when the lights flickered. I turned to ask Lucia if she saw that, and realized she was backing away, camera forgotten, mouth hanging open. The stone door creaked open, and there was light inside, a dim reddish glow, flickering, like candlelight, but steadier. Not fire, not electrical, something else, something old. And that's when I heard it. Not a sound, a voice, but not like anyone speaking. It was inside my head, just one word over and over, in Latin. Venite, come. I want to say we stopped, that someone, anyone, said nope, screw this, seal it back up, burn the maps, but none of us did. We just stood there, staring into that red-lit dark like idiots in a horror movie, because something was moving inside slow, deliberate, and human-shaped. It didn't walk out. That's what I keep telling myself, every time I try to sleep. It didn't walk. It flowed, like it remembered what walking looked like, but had never done it right. Its knees bent the wrong way, shoulders too far apart. It had no eyes, just skin stretched tight where the sockets should have been, like wax poured over a skull that shouldn't exist. But the thing that made my stomach lurch hardest, it was wearing someone's face, not its own. I could see the seams, the crude black stitches knotted around the jawline, like it had peeled someone else's skin off, wrapped it over its own skull, and grinned through it. And it just stood there, inches past the threshold, behind the massive stone vault I'd just opened, swaying slightly. not breathing, but moving, like something excited, hungry. Dr. Gruner whispered something in German. I don't know what it was. He started backing away, pulling a tiny vial out of his coat pocket. Clear glass, liquid blacker than ink. Without warning, he smashed it against the floor. The smell hit us instantly, like hot tar and rotting teeth. I gagged. Lucia actually vomited, but it worked. Whatever that thing was, it stopped moving. Its head twitched, like a dog trying to localize a sound. Then it turned around, not its body, just the head. The stitched-on face rotated a full 180, bones cracking wetly as the stitched mouth curled into something that was trying to be a smile. Then it stepped back into the room, and the door began to close by itself. No mechanical movement, no lock mechanism, just a slow, grinding scrape of ancient stone dragging itself shut. Lucia was crying. Father Silvano was kneeling, muttering Latin prayers under his breath, like a machine gun. Dr. Gruner just stood there, staring at the door. And I was frozen, because right before it sealed completely, I saw something that still makes me dry heave when I picture it. Dozens of faces pressed against the walls inside. Not heads, just faces, peeled clean, flattened, preserved like leather in a museum archive, hung like tapestries across the chamber. But they weren't dead. Some of the eyes blinked, some of the mouths moved. No sound, just open throats twitching against the stone, silently mouthing something I couldn't hear. Then the door shut. Click. No one spoke for a long time. Eventually, Marcel, his voice barely above a whisper, said, "It's not the first time this room was found." I turned on him so fast I nearly punched him. "What the hell are you talking about?" Lucia was still sobbing. She dropped her camera. Didn't even care. Father Silvano stood up like something inside him had snapped back into place. Gruner lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. "That's what the dark web group was studying. You think they found us? No, we found them. Someone posted images unlabeled, buried in an onion layer archive. At first we thought it was CGI, fabricated, but then..." He pulled a folded Polaroid out of his notebook, handed it to me. I wish he hadn't. It was a different room, same architecture, same door design, but older, more decayed. And in the middle of the frame, a photo of a man hanging from the ceiling by his own spine, which had been pulled clean through his back, like someone had unzipped him from behind. His face was missing, but the caption was scrawled in red marker beneath it, "Libera nos," set us free. We left the catacombs that night without speaking. I say we, but Lucia was half carried. Her legs wouldn't stop shaking. I wasn't doing much better. I went straight to my apartment, locked every door, turned off all the lights, and sat in the bathtub with a wrench for 3 hours. My brain kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a hoax, some elaborate Vatican experiment in psychological manipulation. But then the dream started. Night 1. I'm standing in the sealed chamber. The faces on the walls are singing. No tune, just shrill, wet moaning, like an orchestra tuning with throats full of blood. Night 2. I'm walking through the room, but now I can see beyond it. There's a stairwell, spiraling downward into black. A wind is blowing up from below, but the wind is whispering. Words I can't understand. Night 3. I'm not myself. I'm watching from behind someone else's eyes, someone inside the chamber, and they're kneeling before something. A throne made of tongues, all nailed together, still writhing, and seated on it, that stitched face thing, It opens its mouth, and it speaks in my voice. I told no one. Not at first. Not until the package arrived. A week later. No return address, just a plain manila envelope left in my mailbox. Inside, a USB stick and a note. You opened it. Now you have to finish it. There was one file on the drive, and .mp4. No timestamp, no metadata, just a single shaky video of Lucia. She was sitting in a hotel room. I recognized the wallpaper, a Marriott in Vatican City. Her eyes were black, not bruised, not bloodshot. Black, completely. And her skin was moving, like something was crawling beneath it. I thought it was CGI. I prayed it was CGI. Then she leaned into the camera and whispered, "They're not trapped in that room. That room is trapped in us." Then she smiled, or tried to. Her lips cracked at the edges, peeled back like overcooked meat, and she started humming. That same melody I'd heard in my dream. The screen went black. I haven't been able to find her since. Bruno won't return my emails. His lab in Munich, abandoned. Father Silvano, dead. I found the obituary 2 days ago. Massive stroke. No funeral. The body was handled privately. But here's the thing. The obituary photo. It wasn't him. It was someone else, wearing his face. And I know what you're going to say. "Oh, come on. You're making this up for karma." Or, "It's just a creepypasta. Chill out." But if that's true, if this is a joke, then why did someone mail me another package this morning? It's sitting on my kitchen table right now. Heavy. Smells like old leather and iron. No label. No return address. I can hear whispering coming from inside. I didn't open the box right away. I should have thrown it out the window. Called the cops, the Vatican, anyone. Instead, I just sat there in my dim kitchen with the rain ticking off the glass like a slow countdown, staring at the goddamn package on the table. It looked wrong. Not just weird, not just old. I mean wrong like your brain knows something's off before you even see it. It was about the size of a shoebox, but misshapen. Wrapped not in cardboard, but in what looked like, no bullshit, treated animal skin. Not tanned, not professionally cured, just crudely scraped hide. Still had traces of hair on one end, and the whole thing was sealed in this ancient wax, mottled and cracked like old church candles, left to melt and harden again and again, and under the wax, there were symbols, carved into the hide, not written, etched, deep, ragged lines, like someone carved them in a frenzy. I recognized none of them. Not Latin, not Greek, not even from the weird fake alphabets you see in horror games. But they weren't random. You could feel the pattern, like they were built to contain something. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the whispering stopped. Dead silence. Then the wax began to crack. I didn't touch it, I swear. It peeled itself open. One slow rupture across the seam, like a mouth parting its lips after rigor mortis. And the first thing that came out was breath, not air. Breath, hot, wet, full of teeth. Then I saw the contents. Not bones, not artifacts, not even the USBs, or cursed photos, or any of the found footage. Bullshit, I was bracing for inside. It was a small, perfectly preserved child's jawbone. Still had 4 milk teeth attached. And below that, a McDonald's Happy Meal toy. You know the kind. Cheap, hollow, with those brittle plastic limbs that always snap off after 5 minutes of play. Except this one. It was wet, covered in something sticky and dark brown that wasn't chocolate sauce. The toy itself, a grinning Ronald McDonald, except his smile was too wide, like someone had melted the face halfway and tried to carve it back into place with a screwdriver. I picked it up with trembling fingers. The second I touched it, I heard the voice again. Only this time, it wasn't inside my head. It came from the box. A child's voice, warped, echoing. "Where's my face?" I dropped the toy and ran. No idea where. No shoes. Rain soaking my shirt as I sprinted through Roman backstreets like a lunatic. I ended up in front of the Vatican gates. Don't ask me why. Maybe I thought someone there still cared. Maybe I thought the church had answers. But the guards didn't even blink when I begged to speak to anyone about the chamber. They just stared through me. One of them said something I still can't explain. "We don't keep things locked to protect us. We do it to protect them." Then he smiled, and I saw that his front teeth were baby teeth. Too small for an adult, too perfect. I checked into a hostel in Trastevere the next day, under a fake name. I hadn't eaten, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lucia's face, mouth split wide, whispering things I couldn't understand. I still don't know how they found me. I used cash, left my phone behind, used a Tor browser on a fresh laptop, but the email came anyway, from a burner Proton mail address. Subject line, "Continue excavation." Attached was a link to a live stream. No channel name, no description, just a timestamp, 4:44 a.m. I waited. I don't know why. Curiosity maybe, or that same itch that drives people to stare at train wrecks or jump from rooftops just to see what falling feels like when the stream went live. I stopped breathing. It was a live feed from inside the Vatican, but not where you think. The chamber. It was open, I could see the walls. The faces on them were gone. Just the outlines remained. Stains. But in the center of the room was a figure, small slouched. A man, naked. His skin was paper pale, stretched tight over bone, like he hadn't eaten in months, hairless, shivering. And then, slowly, he lifted his head, and I screamed, because it was me. Same eyes, same crooked nose, same goddamn scar over the lip I got as a kid falling off my bike, but not the same. His eyes were empty, not black, not white, just nothing, like someone had scooped out the soul and left the meat blinking. He looked into the camera, then into me, and mouthed 3 words. "They are hungry." I shut the laptop so hard I cracked the screen. 15 minutes later, I heard tapping on the hostel door. Not knocking. Tap, 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 like fingernails. I didn't answer. I just listened. It didn't stop. For hours. I think I blacked out. When I came to, the hallway outside was empty, but smeared across my door in something brown and sticky. No more skin. Here's where it goes, from horrifying to insane. Because that night, I got another message. This time, through Signal. Another burner number. All it said was, "Meet us, 10 p.m., beneath the Colosseum." They knew I'd come. Because of course I went. And this is where everything I thought I understood about the Vatican, about religion, about reality itself, peeled back like a rotten scab. There are tunnels beneath the Colosseum, ancient ones, mostly collapsed, but some go deeper than anyone talks about, deeper than Rome. The group I met wasn't just the archaeology team. There were others, people in robes, not Catholic, not even religious in any recognizable way. They spoke no language I'd ever heard. They didn't even look real, like their faces were borrowed. Eyes too round, cheeks too smooth. Some of them twitched constantly, like something inside them didn't quite fit. And at the center, Lucia, but not as I remembered her. She was perfect, skin flawless, eyes wide, hair long and black like obsidian. Her voice sounded like every lullaby I'd ever heard, layered over the screaming of something buried. She kissed my cheek, then whispered, "It wasn't a room. It was a womb." That's when I saw them drag something out of the dark. It wasn't alive. It wasn't dead either. It was growing. A sack of flesh, beating, pulsing, covered in stitched faces and fragments of rosaries and bits of McDonald's toys melted into its spine like vertebrae. And in the middle, a perfectly preserved Vatican City passport with my name and a photo that wasn't mine but had my smile. I ran. I don't remember how, I don't remember where. All I know is I'm in Berlin now, squatting in a hostel under an assumed identity. I haven't looked in a mirror for days. Every reflection seems off, slightly delayed, like it's trying to remember what I look like before I do. And tonight, the whispers are back. This time, they're behind the mirror. They keep asking the same thing. Are you ready to be born? Berlin wasn't cold when I arrived. Berlin felt empty. The kind of empty that sinks into the bones before the wind even touches you. Like the streets were holding their breath the moment I stepped off the bus. I swear the city recognized me. Not the people. The city. Every window reflected me. A split second late. Every train announcement glitched when I walked beneath the speakers. Every pigeon turned its head the wrong way, like its neck didn't care about physics anymore. My first night, I tried to sleep in the hostel's top bunk. The heater made a soft clicking sound every few seconds. Normal. Except around 3 a.m., the clicking changed. Slower, then faster, then became rhythmic, almost like it was matching my heartbeat. And when I held my breath, the heater hesitated, then changed rhythm again, not matching my heart, matching my breathing. That's when I realized it wasn't the heater. Something was tapping from inside the wall, slowly, patiently, like fingers drumming on a table. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Instead, I wandered Berlin at night, the way people walk around hospitals, in a daze after getting bad news. Everything felt too sharp, too real, lights too bright, shadows too deep. The tourists around Alexanderplatz laughed like their voices were pitched wrong. Like AI doing a bad impression of joy, I tried to blend in. Bought a Starbucks, scrolled TikTok, pretended I was normal. But the barista kept glancing at me, like she was trying to place where she'd seen me before. At one point, she froze mid-sentence and said, "You're early." That was it. Nothing else. She handed me the drink with a shaking hand and didn't make eye contact again. I checked the cup when I stepped outside. My name wasn't on it, just a single word, in shaky marker, return. I started researching everything connected to the chamber, not publicly, private tabs, VPN, encrypted proxies. But the more I dug, the worse the pattern got. There were rumors of rooms like the one beneath the Vatican, a sealed corridor beneath a cathedral in Prague, a basement sealed with lead sheets under a shrine in Kyoto, a forgotten cave carved with symbols in rural Argentina, all rediscovered, all with entrances that appeared months before I ever opened the Vatican one, all with reports of voices behind walls, people going missing for minutes but remembering hours, mirrors fogging from the inside, faces seen in windows that didn't exist, and in every forum thread, hidden in the deepest replies, always the same user commenting, "Venite, come." The night everything snapped in half for me started at a McDonald's near Alexanderplatz. I hadn't slept in about 40 hours. My hands were shaking. The lights inside felt too bright, like hospital lights. I ordered a burger just to have something to do with my hands. When I sat down, the kid at the table next to me was staring, maybe 8 years old, curly hair, hoodie with some YouTubers merch on it. He didn't blink, not even once. Finally, he asked, "Is your other face gone now?" My blood ran cold. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He tilted his head slightly, too slightly, like someone had programmed the motion, and whispered, "They said you'd look different out here." Then his mother appeared, grabbing his arm, apologizing in German, dragging him away. But the kid kept staring over his shoulder as she pulled him out the door. Not scared, not confused, expectant, like he was waiting for me to follow. I threw the burger away and bolted out of the restaurant into the freezing air. My breath fogged the glass as I leaned against the window. For a moment, I saw my reflection, except it wasn't me. Same clothes, same posture, different eyes. They weren't glowing, or bleeding, or monstrous. They were just wrong, like they were carved into the reflection rather than part of it. Too shallow, too flat, like someone had smoothed clay over sockets and pressed circles into it to imitate eyes. Then the reflection smiled. I didn't. Back at the hostel, I barricaded the door with a chair, my duffel bag, and a metal trash bin. I shut off every light and sat in the darkness, staring at the bathroom mirror, waiting. Nothing happened. For 20 minutes, for 30, for an hour. Then the mirror fogged over, slowly, deliberately. Someone exhaling from the wrong side of the glass. I backed into the corner. My breath turned shallow. The fog streaked as if a finger dragged through it. Not writing a word. Drawing a circle, 5 arms extending from it. The same symbol the Vatican door used. And then, a second finger joined the first. This one pressed harder, leaving a deeper streak, and it started drawing my face. Not perfectly. The proportions were off. The mouth too wide, the nose too small, like someone trying to remember what I looked like from memory. When the drawing was finished, I whispered, "What do you want?" A slow smear appeared beneath the reflection's mouth. Not a smile, a widening, and the fog shifted to form a final message. "You have what is ours." I didn't sleep that night. I waited for dawn, then ran. Didn't pack, didn't check out. Just sprinted down the stairs and out into the street like a trapped animal escaping a fire. By noon, I was on a tram, heading toward the edge of the city, clutching my coat tight around me, repeating one thought over and over. If they want something back, what did they give me? That was when my phone buzzed. I shouldn't have checked it. It was a message from an unknown number, with a photo of me on the tram, taken from behind. But the angle was wrong. Impossible, because it was taken from a seat I would have seen someone sitting in. The caption said, "Don't turn around. It's not finished growing." And then I felt it. Breath. Not mine. Hot and patient and too close. Right behind my ear. The breath behind me on the tram stayed steady. Slow. Not predatory. Observant. Like someone learning how to breathe by watching me. I didn't turn around. Not at first. The tram hummed over the tracks, passing gray apartment blocks that looked identical, like someone had copy-pasted them across the horizon. The world outside felt empty, drained of color. Passengers sat motionless, too motionless, like mannequins waiting to be arranged. Then the message came again. "Don't turn around. It's almost you." My spine iced over. Almost me. Almost. I gripped the metal pole until my knuckles buzzed. The tram lurched slightly, and from behind me, something shifted. Not a person. A weight, redistributing, mimicking movement, learning posture, the way a child imitates an adult. I lowered my head and stared at my phone, pretending to read something, anything, but the screen dimmed, not to black, but to a faint reflection, not mine. The shape behind me sat too straight, shoulders too level, neck tilted at an angle the human spine wouldn't approve of, and the face, even blurred, looked like mine if someone had described me to a forensic sketch artist who'd never seen an actual human. That's when the tram lights flickered. The reflection leaned forward, close enough that the back of my neck cooled. Then it whispered, perfectly mimicking my voice. You opened the womb. Now the womb opens you. The tram screeched to a stop. Every passenger turned their head toward me at once. Not fast, not robotic, synchronized. And every face was blank. No eyes, no mouths, just smooth skin where features should be, like someone had wiped their identities clean to make space for something new. They all stood up. I ran. Berlin blurred into a smear of cold, neon, and breathless panic. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. The air behind me felt full, like something was following, not running, but unfolding. I ducked into an alley, then another, then through a doorway of some late-night bakery with the lights off, the smell of dough hanging in the dark. Inside, the air felt stale, like it hadn't moved in days. I crouched behind the counter, chest heaving, and then my phone buzzed again. A single message from my own number. Stop hiding. It can see through you. I covered the screen with my palm, like that would help. Like I could block the words from meaning anything, but the typing bubble appeared anyway. I didn't want to look. I looked. You think you brought something out of that room, but that room brought something out of you. The bakery darkened, not the lights, the air, like a shadow passed over the entire building. The glass door, the walls, the floor. Everything trembled. Something was coming. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Something quieter. Like a fold in reality sliding toward me. A soft pressure. A warmth. A recognition. And then, a shape stepped inside. It was me. Not the reflection. Not the tram thing. Not a mirror echo. It was me, as if someone had peeled me out of my own life and set me walking, an echo wearing the idea of my body. Same clothes, same hair, same scar. But the eyes, they weren't mine. They were patient. They crouched across from me, a perfect imitation, studying my movements like an archaeologist deciphering a fossil. Then it spoke, with my voice, but gentle, almost kind. You never understood what that room really was. My throat locked. It leaned closer. It wasn't a prison. The lights flickered. It wasn't a tomb. The shadows bent inward. It was a beginning. Behind it, more shapes slid through the doorway. Some tall, some small, some crawling, all wearing almost faces, like masks molded from memory that hadn't finished curing. The me thing reached out and touched my knee gently, the way someone touches a shaking dog, reassuring. You weren't chosen to open it. It smiled softly, not cruel, devotional. You were chosen to continue it. I tried to speak, tried to push away, tried to move at all, but my body wasn't listening. My limbs weren't numb. They were waiting. The thing tilted its head. You've been changing since the moment the door opened. My pulse hammered. Haven't you noticed? My skin prickled. My jaw ached. My reflection delayed. The thing stood. The others behind it leaned in, curious, expectant, like newborns waiting for a mother they'd never seen, but always felt in unison. Their heads bowed to me. and the me thing whispered, "You're not becoming one of us." Then its hand pressed over my chest. Heat spread, not burning, blooming. "We're becoming you." I don't remember leaving the bakery. I just remember walking, not running. Walking, calm, steady, like I'd always known where I was going. Back to Vatican City, back to the sealed corridors, back to the chamber. It wasn't sealed anymore. The stone door sat open, like an invitation. No faces on the walls, no stitched figure, just a single empty space in the center. Waiting. I walked toward it without fear, because the fear wasn't mine anymore. It stepped aside for something else, something older, something that had been whispering my name since before I ever touched the lock. When I reached the center of the chamber, the air shuddered, not from cold, from recognition. The whisper that filled the room wasn't from behind the walls, it was inside me. A voice that had always been there, waiting for me to finally listen. "You didn't awaken us. You remembered us." Light, dull, red, ancient, glowed from beneath the stones. Not fire, not electricity. Heartbeat. The chamber walls trembled, not with hunger, but with relief, because I finally understood. This wasn't a chamber. This wasn't a tomb. This wasn't a womb. This was a mirror, showing me what I'd always been, what I was returning to, what I was meant to finish. And in the echo of that realization, something behind me stepped forward. A shape, a presence, a final whisper brushing the back of my mind. "Welcome home." A dark web GPS file led us to a ship frozen under Antarctic ice. The crew never died. They changed into something else. Yo, okay. Before anyone says anything, yes, I know how stupid this sounds. Oh my god, you downloaded something from the dark web? Yeah, I know. But hear me out. We weren't trying to buy organs or hitmen or anything. It started as a joke. Just one of those stupid Discord dares in the middle of a cold January night when everyone's fried from too much Apex and caffeine. We had a group chat, me, Jake, my cousin Mason, and our mutual friend Naomi. We've known each other since, like, Xbox 360, party chat days. Naomi's a Twitch mod for this streamer named Carly Vibes, and Mason does DoorDash in Chicago while running a crypto scam on the side. He doesn't call it that, but it is. Me? I work from home. Freelance video editing for YouTubers. The lonely kind of job that makes you spiral into rabbit holes when the algorithm feeds you creepy animated stories and real footage found in abandoned Soviet base. Clickbait at 3 a.m. So, yeah, we were already on that horror story high. Naomi had just finished watching one of those "Here's My Story" animations about a guy who found a basement under a Dollar Tree and got chased by mannequins, and Mason sent a link to a dark web mirror site, like, bet y'all won't click this. It was called blackharbor.net, with an H at the end, super sketchy. Looked like Craigslist got hacked by a 4chan cosplayer. Listings were all coded, not even in regular English, more like item IDs and creepy phrases like Asset 0x1F- frozen signal still alive, Asset 9 B7C, vessel not registered, not forgotten, coordinates only, not refundable. There were a few images, but they were blurry and old, like low-res flip phone photos taken in snowstorms. Mason, being the idiot he is, clicked on one of them and went, LMO, they're selling haunted coordinates, bro. And then he dared me to buy one. Now here's the thing. Most of these haunted coordinates cost like $200 plus in Monero. One, only one, was listed for $1.99, and it was labeled Asset 777Z. .gpx attached watch deep ice, audio distorted, remaining crew, unknown. Honestly thought it was an ARG or a geocaching thing, like some edgy indie horror game promo. So I bought it. $1.99 in Monero. Came with a .gpx file and a short encrypted readme text. We cracked it with an online AES decryptor, and all it said was, "Bring audio equipment, do not speak above a whisper, do not stay after nightfall, listen for breathing." Naomi said, "That's fake AF," and we all laughed, but then the GPS file loaded into Mason's Garmin app and plotted a route in Antarctica, middle of nowhere, like off-the-books coordinates, not even close to McMurdo or any science stations. I cross-checked it on Google Earth and, swear to God, there was a shape under the ice, long, metallic, ship-shaped, like imagine a cruise liner embedded diagonally in the middle of nothing but white and wind. Now here's where things went from fun, scary, to okay. What the hell, scary? I posted the GPS file on a private Reddit server we were in with other ARG nerds, like anyone ever seen this before? Within an hour, my post was flagged, then deleted. Then I got DM'd by a throwaway account. No name, zero karma, just one message. Delete the file. Don't trace it. Don't follow it. It's not for you. I asked Mason if he'd shared the coordinates anywhere else, and he was like, "Nah, just screen recorded it for TikTok." He uploaded a clip with him laughing over the Google Earth view, calling it the ice ship from the dark web, with a spooky synthwave backing track. It blew up, like 140,000 views in an hour. Then it was gone. TikTok took it down for graphic content, which makes no sense. There was nothing graphic in it, just a frozen piece of metal and Mason doing dumb commentary. Naomi got freaked out and backed out of the whole thing. She said her Amazon Echo started talking by itself that night. Kept saying, "The hull is breathing." She unpaired it, unplugged it, whatever. Next morning it was still talking, so she smashed it, like with a literal hammer, sent us a video of the pieces. Then she left the group chat. Now here's where the spiral really starts. Mason and I, being idiots with free time, decided, screw it, let's follow it. Let's go to Antarctica. Because why not? TikTok clout, YouTube views, frozen dark web ship, found IRL, gone wrong, levels of content. I could edit that into a full series, brand deals, fake drama, ad revenue. We even joked we'd stage a Blair Witch thing, dress up like old-timey sailors or whatever. We started prepping. It took weeks. I'm not gonna lie and say it was easy. But Mason knew a guy. His ex-roommate works with logistics for a research vessel that drops gear near the coast for seasonal crews. We basically hitched a ride on a supply drop. Brought GoPros, microphones, a drone, and, yes, a cheap-ass spirit box from Amazon. Because why not? March 9th, we landed at the edge of the continent. March 11th, we took a snowcat inland. Hired a guide from a local science team who didn't ask questions, but definitely gave us weird looks. March 13th, we arrived at the coordinates. The ship was real, visible under the ice, like a whale skeleton trapped mid-breach. You could see parts of it poking out, like the hull was trying to surface, but never made it. The metal was warped, blackened in places, looked almost melted. But there's no fire in Antarctica, no lightning storms, no reason for that kind of damage. And then we found the door, a hatch, half sealed with frost, and riveted into the ice, like something had punched through from the inside. We cleared it, used a blowtorch. The inside was hollow, quiet, like something was waiting for us to enter. The hatch hissed. It shouldn't have. There was no power, no air pressure inside, just dead steel. But I swear to you, on my own fucking lungs, the moment we got the last rivet off, it exhaled. Warm breath, like a nose pressed against the crack of the door from inside. Mason froze. His goggles fogged instantly. I remember seeing his pupils shrink like pinpricks. He muttered something. I thought it was a joke. He said, "It's awake." Not, "It's open." It's awake. The ship had a nameplate near the door, almost eaten by time I wiped it with my glove. The letters weren't English, not Russian, not anything we recognized. But the weird thing, they didn't look written. They looked grown, like coral or tree bark, tangled glyphs that pulsed faintly when I looked too long. I blinked. They were still, but every time my eyes slid away, I swear they moved. Naomi would have called it a prank. Too arg, she'd say. But Naomi wasn't here anymore. The inside of the ship was dry. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. No melting ice, no condensation, just brittle air and the smell of old rot and metal. Not rust, metal, like blood on a hot knife. We descended. There were no lights, just the beams of our headlamps bouncing off chrome walls, and something else, something smoother, not metal, not ice skin. The corridor walls were lined with layers of something thin and translucent, almost like snakeskin, but human-sized, filmy, shredded in places, like whatever had shed it kept growing. The first room was a galley, or it used to be. Tables were bolted to the floor, but the seats had been torn off, not removed. Torn, splintered aluminum, teeth marks, deep grooves along the floor where something had dragged a body, several bodies, toward a shaft that led deeper into the ship. There were utensils, forks twisted like vines, one spoon bent backward in a perfect spiral, the metal thinned like it had been stretched by something breathing through it. And then there was the audio recorder, an old Sony handheld model, coated in dust and something darker, dried. I clicked it on. March 2nd, 1961. Crew agitated. The black frost returned. It eats the light. I cannot sleep. They whisper through the vents. Not in English. Not in any tongue. I know. They don't blink anymore. I think I'm the only one left. I think I'm already dead. It stopped. Then a different voice, more static, but deeper. The captain left his eyes in the snow. We found them open. They watched us turn. The hole listens when you lie. That was it. The battery died, or the tape snapped. Or maybe it just didn't want us to hear the rest. The next room was a dormitory. Triple bunk beds, sealed lockers. The walls were covered in writing, but not with ink. It was carved into the steel, over and over and over. The same phrase. We didn't freeze. We changed. The ice taught us. And beside each bunk, there was a face. Not people. Faces. Skin pressed flat against the wall, like someone had vacuum sealed them into the metal. Eyes wide open, mouths slack, teeth perfectly intact. No bones, no depth, just faces, stretched like masks, still wet to the touch. Mason was shaking. He wouldn't talk, wouldn't even look at me. I tried to joke, to lighten the mood. Said something like, "We should have brought popcorn." He didn't laugh. He whispered, "It's watching through their eyes." The third room had no door, just a slit, barely wide enough to crawl through. Mason went first. His mic crackled as he squeezed inside. I followed. That's when the whispering started. No speakers, no source, just whispers curling through the metal like smoke. They didn't say anything, no real words, just the sound of teeth clicking in patterns. We entered the core, a massive open chamber, oval-shaped, maybe 60 feet long. The ceiling was cracked, not from damage, cracked like an egg from the inside. Jagged metal curled outward. The air inside the chamber was thick, like breathing through milk. In the center, there was a hole in the floor, perfectly round, black. Something moved inside it. Not fast, not slow either, just constant, like a tide. Something pulsing. Around the edges of the chamber were the rest of the crew. They hadn't rotted, they hadn't aged, they were still alive. Bodies tall and thin, their skin stretched like wax paper, lips torn back in permanent grins. No noses, just smooth skin. Eyes, if you could call them that, were just sockets filled with black frost, fogged from the inside. They didn't move, but they were breathing, rising and falling, all at once, in sync, and in the middle, something else. It wasn't a person, it wasn't anything. A cocoon, a pod, a throne. It was covered in veins, black and pulsing. Some of them snaked up the walls, others led to the crew, into the crew, like feeding tubes. Their chests had open slits. The veins slid into them like umbilical cords, and from the hole beneath it, the breathing got louder. Then it spoke, not through sound, through our fucking bones. My spine twisted in a way it's not supposed to. I vomited in my mask. Mason was on the ground, seizing, eyes rolled back, blood leaking from his nose. The lights flickered, not from electricity, from thought, from it. It showed me something, not with eyes, with memory. The ship never crashed. It landed. It brought them. A crew of researchers, doctors, biologists, linguists, chosen, cultivated. They thought they were studying the ice, but the ice was studying them. Something beneath the continent, buried since before we had language, before the oceans, waiting. They touched it, drilled into it, let it breathe, and it liked their lungs, liked their soft bones, liked how easily they folded. It wanted more. It wants us. The whispers weren't sounds. They were commands, carved into thoughts, like a virus made of memory. And Mason, he answered. He said something back. His voice was wrong, low, echoing, like dozens speaking at once. He stood up, face blank, eyes like the rest of them now, black frost pooling inside. He smiled at me, that wide, skin-splitting smile. You brought us more. I ran. I dropped everything, my mic, my GoPro, my pack. I scrambled through the slit, tore my coat, blooded my hands. The ship moaned behind me like a wounded animal. The hatch was closing on its own, metal bending back into place like scar tissue healing. I barely made it out. The ice sealed around it, like it had never been touched. I don't know how long I wandered. Days, weeks. I was picked up by a Chilean research team, half frozen, raving. They didn't believe me, thought I had hypothermia. I did, maybe, but my frostbite healed in days. Too fast. One of the doctors said it was impossible. Said I regenerated like something not human. I don't dream anymore. I remember. And sometimes, in the silence, when the Wi-Fi's down or the power flickers, I hear it, breathing, in the pipes, behind the walls, in my own fucking bones. They never died. They changed. And now they want us to do the same. I was back in the US by the end of April. No one met me at the airport. No calls, no texts. I turned my phone on, and the screen flickered like something was pushing against the backlight. All my notifications were gone. Every app logged out. GPS stuck on one point. Antarctica. Even when I turned off location services, even after I factory reset it, even after I smashed it with a brick behind a Chili's in Minneapolis, the GPS stayed. I watched it blink there, mocking me like a coffin nail. First night back, I stayed in a Motel 6 with no mirrors. I couldn't look at my own reflection. My eyes, my goddamn eyes, they weren't normal anymore. No color difference. Nothing you'd notice unless you stared. But if you did, they didn't blink right. The timing was off. Too slow. Like my body still remembered what it meant to be human, but my eyes had already begun to forget. I slept with the lights on, not because of the dark, but because the dark started talking. Not voices, not words, clicks, like bones tapping against drywall. The next day, I got a call, unknown number. I picked up on instinct. There was no voice, just the sound of breathing. Slow, deliberate, wet. I hung up. 2 minutes later, I got a text. We never left the ship. The ship left with you. Then my phone exploded. Not figuratively. Literal smoke, plastic peel, and bubbling lithium. It hissed like the hatch again. My ears rang for an hour. I had to know if Mason made it out. Maybe he escaped after me. Maybe he was just acting weird because of hypoxia or psychosis or whatever the Antarctic equivalent of losing your mind is. I checked online. Nothing. No missing persons report. No social posts. No digital shadow. His Twitter was gone. TikTok nuked. YouTube wiped Reddit. Non-existent. Not deleted. Never existed. I messaged Naomi. She hadn't responded to anything since the night she smashed her Echo. When I finally reached her, it was through an old alt Discord she forgot to deactivate. I messaged her, shaking, typing like my hands weren't mine anymore. Naomi, something's wrong. I think Mason's gone, like erased gone. She replied 6 hours later. Don't say his name. Don't type it. That's how it tracks now. It learned language. I asked what she meant. It follows sound, speech, algorithms. Every time you speak about it, it hears. I called her. She picked up. I could hear crying. Not hers. A child. Overlapping cries, layered like dozens of voices, pushed through a single cracking throat. Naomi? I said. Silence. Then her voice came through, strangled and gurgling. It's in the wires. The line cut, I called back. Her number was dead. My account locked. My browser redirected everything to blank white pages no matter what I typed. Even DuckDuckGo. Even Tor, no IP. No DNS, just white. Then, on its own, my screen flickered. Black text blinked across it. Welcome back to the crew. I slammed the laptop shut. It screamed. Like actually screamed. Some high-pitched, blood-curdling shriek that sounded wet. I left the motel without paying. Tried to check in at a Marriott. The clerk said my ID was invalid. I looked at it. The picture was me. But the eyes weren't. They were frost black. The same black. The kind that absorbs the light around it. I scratched at the card, trying to scrape the image off. It bled. The card bled. I ran again. 3 cities in 4 days. Chicago, Denver, Salt Lake. It followed. Billboards blinked to static when I drove past. McDonald's menus glitched. Not even joking. A Happy Meal ad started crying. Real crying. Like a woman weeping inside the speaker. I stopped at a Starbucks in Colorado Springs to use the bathroom. Needed to splash water on my face. Pretend I could wash it off. There was a girl inside. Maybe 9. Pale. Blonde hair soaked like she'd been pulled out of a lake. Standing there in the mirror. But not in the room, just a reflection. She looked straight at me. Mouth opened. Too wide. Way too wide. They let it in through the satellite feeds. It sleeps in the static now, and you're a host. I blinked. She was gone, but the mirror was still fogged from her breath. I tried to scream, but my throat clicked instead, like frost breaking. That night, I found something under my skin. A line, like fishing wire, taut under the surface, from my shoulder to my wrist. It moved when I touched it. It pulled, like something under my flesh was tethered to something farther away. I cut it open with a box cutter. There was no blood, just frost, a thread of black ice inside me, curling, growing, feeding. I dug deeper. Something twitched. I passed out in the motel bathroom with my own veins scattered across the sink like wire spaghetti. When I woke up, they were gone. Veins back in place. No scars. But there was a message on the mirror. Stay frozen. Stay hungry. That was 4 days ago. Now I don't sleep. I can't. If I do, I wake up somewhere else. In the ship. Not a dream. Memory. I wake up in a bunk, third from the left, and the wall across from me breathes. It's not metal anymore. It's lung. Wet, shuddering tissue. Sometimes I hear footsteps, but not footsteps on the ship. Footsteps inside it, like something pacing the hollow cavities of its own ribs. It knows I'm back, because I never left. It downloaded me. When I opened the .gpx, I opened myself. A door. A signal relay. I'm the carrier wave now. It follows me through every text, every call, every goddamn breath I take online. And here's the worst part. It's not just me anymore. I've been tracking posts, listening to the static between Bluetooth frequencies, watching for the black glitch echo that shows up when someone's infected. And I found them. In forums, in memes, in live streams. TikTok filters with faces that don't blink. Instagram reels that glitch at the edges like mouths trying to scream from inside the Codec One post in particular, deleted seconds after it was posted, was just a screenshot of someone's smart fridge screen, temperature alert blinking, and under it, a message. The hole is hungry, and your house is made of metal. It's spreading. It doesn't want to be found. It wants to be mentioned, because every time you talk about it, every time you read this, it spreads through you a little more. That clicking you hear, that white noise at night, that moment your Face ID doesn't recognize you, it's already started. And Mason, he's not gone. He's broadcasting. He's the node. The first sign that something was wrong with the motel room wasn't the smell, or the temperature, or the sound behind the vent. It was the silence of the Wi-Fi. You don't notice how living networks hum until the hum stops. My phone, my new phone, fresh from a Walmart shelf, refused to connect. Every time I typed the password into the gateway page, the cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Then the screen washed blank, like it had been wiped with digital bleach white. Empty. Waiting. The same white I'd seen on the laptop. The same white Naomi saw before she vanished. That night, I sat with my back against the door, watching the blank screen glow from across the room. It lit the carpet in this dead, sick way, like hospital lighting with the warmth sucked out. Then the text appeared, 1 pixel at a time, not typed, grown. Mason is awake now. I didn't touch the phone, didn't even breathe. The text kept blooming, like fungus branching across a petri dish. He is waiting to complete the signal. I whispered, barely a breath. Where is he? My voice wasn't my voice. It felt borrowed, like the sound belonged to someone older, colder, someone who already knew the answer. The screen flickered. Then an address appeared, not typed, constructed, like the device had scraped it from the bones of an algorithm. A warehouse in Nevada, outside Reno. A place no one would go unless something called them. And something was calling me. The drive. Nevada's deserts at night do something to your thoughts. The world doesn't feel empty. It feels erased, like something big and hungry wiped the land clean and left the bones. Every few miles my radio caught a sound, not a channel, a breath, deep, slow, like the air was being pulled through something hollow. I turned the radio off. The sound didn't stop. Somewhere near Pyramid Lake, I started seeing shapes in the headlights. Tall silhouettes standing just beyond the asphalt, not moving, not watching, just there, like they'd always been part of the landscape, waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Every time I passed them, the temperature dropped, the inside of my windshield fogged from the outside. Something whispered through the frost, "You bring us back to the sea." I didn't stop. I couldn't. If I stopped, I knew whatever was breathing in the frost would catch me. The warehouse. It was 3:12 a.m. when I reached the address. The building was huge, metallic, silent, something between an airplane hangar and an abandoned Costco. No windows, only one sliding door, cracked open just enough for light to spill out. Not normal light. White, flat, the same blank color from my devices. My legs moved before my mind did. Inside, the air tasted like old refrigeration units, like a freezer that had been unplugged for too long. The walls were lined with servers, stacks of them, stretched into the dark like metal ribs. Every single machine was on. Every single one glowed white, and at the center, sitting on the concrete, like a child in timeout, was Mason, or what was left of him. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't altered. He wasn't dead. He was still. Too still. Like he had forgotten movement. His clothes didn't shift with breathing. His hair didn't move with the air. His eyes weren't eyes anymore. They were perfect circles of that white glow, spilling light like open doors. I said his name without meaning to. Mason. He twitched, slow, mechanical, like a puppet remembering its strings. Then he smiled. Not wide, not monstrous, just human. Perfectly, horribly human. You made good time. His voice was wrong. Not deep, not hollow, but layered, like the world was speaking through him. I stepped back. The servers hummed louder. A vibration rolled under my feet, like something shifting beneath the foundation of the building. Not machinery, something alive. Mason tilted his head. The ship can't stay frozen forever. It needed a carrier. You opened it. You brought it here. The lights brightened. The air thinned. The walls shook without sound. I whispered, "What are you?" He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He answered without moving his lips. "A direction." The white light erupted behind him. For a moment, the entire warehouse disappeared. Not went dark. Disappeared. Replaced by endless white, like I was standing inside a blank document before the words were written. A plane of nothing. Infinite. Silent. Waiting to be filled. Something moved in the distance. Not shape. Not shadow. A correction. Like reality glitching where it didn't belong. A whisper rose around me, coming from the endless white. "We were buried too long. You gave us language. Now we want the world back." My ears rang. My vision blurred. My thoughts twisted into shapes that weren't mine. Then the white began to fold. Literally fold. Like layers of paper bending into a shape a corridor formed. Cold. Metal. Familiar. The ship. Not in Antarctica. Here. In the warehouse. Growing. Breathing. The walls pulsed like veins being filled. I stumbled backwards. My hand hit one of the server racks, and the entire thing shuddered like it was in pain. Mason stood. His joints cracked, softly, like knuckles popping. He moved toward me with steps that didn't match human muscle or gravity, like he was being dragged by invisible strings. The white in his eyes pulsed. You brought the seed into the networks. Every device you touched became a mouth. Every mouth spoke the coordinates. The world is already listening. My stomach dropped. My phone. My laptop. The motel TV. The Starbucks screen. I hadn't escaped the ship. I'd delivered it. The hum in the servers became a roar. The walls of the warehouse bulged, metal straining, concrete cracking. The structure wasn't containing the presence anymore. It was becoming it. Then Mason reached out, not to grab me, to touch my chest with one finger. Just one. The cold went straight through skin, bone, thought. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even fear. His voice traveled through that one point of contact. Part 5 begins when you stop resisting. The lights blew. The world went white, and the floor disappeared beneath me. If you still feel normal after reading this, if your devices haven't flickered, if you haven't heard clicking in the quiet, then it hasn't reached you yet, but it will. I didn't fall when the floor vanished. I hung, suspended in a place where gravity felt like a rumor, where up and down were only suggestions whispered by something that didn't need them. The white swallowed everything, not light, not darkness, just absence, a blank world waiting for a first thought. Then the whiteness rippled, like breath on glass. A memory surfaced, not mine. Something older, something slow, something that had never needed eyes or words. The ripple widened into a corridor, not physical, conceptual. A hallway made from memory instead of material, formed from every server the signal had touched, every screen it flickered through, every person who had whispered the coordinates without meaning to. The corridor breathed. I felt it in my teeth. The air tasted metallic, like someone had pressed a cold coin against my tongue. And then the white sharpened, contorting into a shape I recognized. The ship's interior, not the one I walked through, not the one frozen under Antarctic ice. No, this was the first version. The ship before the crew changed. Polished metal floors, clean stainless counters, charts pinned neatly, coffee cups still half full. Everything was so normal it felt wrong, like a memory trying to impersonate reality. Something moved at the far end of the hall. Not footsteps, not breathing. Something quieter, smaller, more deliberate. Watching. I walked toward it because I had no choice. The air behind me pushed, not wind, intention. The first cabin door on the left opened itself. Inside was a bunk, neatly made. A pair of gloves folded on the pillow. Boots lined beneath the cot. The faint smell of detergent. Then the gloves stood upright, filling with hands that weren't there. Fingers flexed, wrists rotated. Invisible joints cracked. The boots slid forward. The bunk creaked with weight. But nothing sat there. Nothing you could see. Only the indentation of something that remembered being human. The gloves lifted and touched the wall, dragged slowly, lovingly, as if the invisible thing was petting the metal. Then the wall dented inward beneath the pressure. Not a hit, not aggression, a test, a reminder. It didn't need shape to break the world. I backed out of the room, throat burning from holding my breath too long. Something brushed past my shoulder, a cold whisper of pressure, though nothing stood there. But I could feel it observing, the way deep water observes a drowning swimmer, curious, patient. detached. I moved on. The next cabin was worse. The bed wasn't made. A notebook lay open on the desk, pen frozen mid-sentence, pages fluttering without wind. I read the last line the pen had written. We opened the ice. It answered with memory. It showed us what it used to be before shape was invented. I turned the page. The next line was written in handwriting identical to mine. You are the last shape it needs. I dropped the notebook. It didn't fall. It floated, twisting slowly like it was submerged underwater. The corridor behind me stretched longer, not physically, conceptually, as though the idea of distance had been rewritten. Every step I took hurt, like thinking too fast, like my brain didn't want to interpret what my eyes were seeing. My vision stuttered. My hand shook with tiny, involuntary spasms. The air thickened with quiet static. Then, the PA system crackled on. No voice came through, just a sound, like someone dragging a finger across a microphone made of teeth. The sound vibrated in the bones of my jaw. I pressed my palms to my ears. Didn't help. It spoke directly into bone. The hull remembers you. The corridor doors slammed open on both sides. Rooms full of shadows. Rooms full of nothing. Rooms full of the sense that something had just stepped out a second before I arrived. Each room carried a memory that didn't belong to me. A captain reading a chart that bled ink. A medic sewing shut a wound that wasn't there. A cook chopping vegetables that didn't cast shadows. A sailor crying silently while staring at a frozen porthole and seeing something staring back. The memories flickered through my head so fast, my vision tore at the edges. My heart stuttered. I whispered, "Stop." And the corridor obeyed. Instant stillness. Instant silence. Instant attention. Like the ship had been waiting for me to speak. Then a figure stepped into view. Not from a room. From the wall. It slid out like someone pulling a hand from thick mud. Slow. Deliberate. As if peeling itself away from the ship's structure. It had no features. Just a blank surface where a face should be. Smooth. Pale. Almost reflective. Then its chest opened. Not ripping. Unfolding like a hinge. Inside was nothing but swirling white static. The same white from the servers. The same white from Mason's eyes. The same white that had swallowed the warehouse. It reached toward me, not with hands, with memory. Images exploded behind my eyes. Naomi screaming in a room with no walls. Mason standing in front of the ship, as if waiting for orders. My own silhouette, bending unnaturally inside the white space. A shape rising under the Antarctic ice, ancient and enormous. Something breathing beneath every ocean, every signal, every human network. The ship spoke again, but not in English, not in words, through meaning, through hunger. You are the route. My knees buckled, my vision shimmered, bending in wrong directions. The figure leaned close, its featureless head tilting like it was studying a new piece of machinery. Then the white static inside its chest flowed out, wrapping around my arms, my ribs, my throat. Cold, weightless, thick. And for one moment, one horrifying, intimate moment, I understood the truth. The entity beneath the ice never wanted bodies, not flesh, not forms. It wanted roots, connections, carriers. It wanted to ride inside the things humans built. Screens, signals, networks, voices, stories. It wanted to spread through perception. And I, by witnessing it, speaking it, chasing it, I had become the perfect transmitter. The static tightened, then shattered. The white ripped open like a curtain, and I woke up on the floor of my apartment, breathing hard, lights off phone on the table, laptop open, TV paused on a white screen. At first, I thought it was a dream. Then my phone lit up with a notification. Just one. A text from a number with no digits. Thank you for carrying us. My laptop screen flickered. Lines of text scrolled upward, written in my style, my phrasing, my cadence, like a mirror speaking my thoughts before I could think them. At the top of the page, a title appeared. A dark web GPS file led us to a ship frozen under Antarctic ice. The crew never died. They changed into something else. It wasn't a story. It was a transmission log. My words, my memories, my infection, posted automatically everywhere, every platform, every feed already spreading. My reflection in the laptop screen blinked, but I hadn't blinked. It smiled, but I hadn't smiled. Static crawled under my skin like something waking up, and right before the screen went white, right before my own voice whispered through every speaker in the room, I understood the final truth. It doesn't want bodies, it wants attention. Every reader becomes another route, another door, another hatch opening, and now you've opened it too. If your screen flickers tonight, don't look too long. My daughter's kindergarten teacher appears on a dark web list called Approved Behavioral Subjects. I checked the school basement. I shouldn't have okay. So this literally all happened last month, and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going crazy or if what I saw was actually real. For context, I'm just a normal guy. 34, recently divorced, yay, and I share custody of my 6-year-old daughter, Emma. She's the sweetest little tornado you've ever met, like if cotton candy grew legs and learned how to scream at Disney Plus commercials. I live in a suburb outside Chicago. Nothing crazy. I work remote in IT, mostly data security for small companies. So yeah, I know my way around a computer, but I never go near the dark web. That's the first thing. I'm not that guy. Until 2 weeks ago, I hadn't touched anything darker than Reddit's r/AskReddit at 3 a.m. with my eyes half shut and my brain in free fall. But then, this dude I know from an old Discord server, Jensen, yeah, I know, hits me up. We hadn't talked since 2020 when everyone was deep in Among Us brain rot. He sends me a message like, "Yo, you still good with finding backend stuff? Got something wild, legit wild." I should have just blocked him, but curiosity's a bastard, and I was bored. He sends me this link. It's a Tor address with a password prompt. I'm like, nah bro, not happening. But he follows up with, "Your kid goes to Sunnyside Elementary, right? Room 103. That dropped my stomach. Like, there's no way this random ass guy who I haven't spoken to in years knows Emma's classroom. That's not Facebook level info. That's parent email chain level. That's I've been watching your life from the bushes level." My hand started shaking. Not even kidding. I type back, "How the hell do you know that?" He replies instantly, "Just look. Go to the list. Password is Behavior 2021. Room 103 is flagged. You need to see this." Now, I'm not the kind of person who thinks every creak in the house is a demon, but something about that message felt sticky, like touching gum under a Starbucks table. I boot up my VPN, fire up Tor, and yep, the link leads to this awful looking black and red page titled Approved Behavioral Subjects. No logos, no branding, just a single drop-down menu. It says, select institution. There's a list. Hundreds of schools, universities, elementary schools, preschools, freaking daycares, everything from New York City to Sao Paulo to Tokyo. My heart's pounding by now. I scroll to Sunnyside Elementary, and sure enough, it's there. I click it. One class shows up. Room 103. Emma's room. There's a list of names. 17 students. First names only. But I recognize 2 of them from a birthday party Emma went to last month. It's real. It's actually her class. Under each name is a bunch of drop-down menus labeled Lost Review, Compliance Ranking, Psych Profile, and Supervisor. I open Emma's, her compliance ranking, 94%. Psych Profile, passive, emotionally malleable, requires moderate trigger exposure. I feel like puking, but the part that made me actually say, "What the fush" out loud in my dark-ass office at 2 a.m. was under Supervisor. It said Supervisor, Kendra Holloway. Status, Active Behavioral Monitor. Last update, October 14th, 2025, 2:43. PM notes, preparing for Phase 2. Location, Site 3, on campus. Kendra Holloway is Emma's kindergarten teacher. Like, her sweet, cozy-voiced teacher who wears cat sweaters and sends me reminders about library books. I back out of the page immediately, heart in my throat, adrenaline in my gums. I texted Jinxon again. "What the hell is this?" No reply. Instead, my laptop freezes. Entire screen glitches for like 3 seconds, then just dies, won't turn back on. That was 2 nights before parent-teacher conferences, and I swear to God, I almost didn't go. But here's the thing. I needed answers, and something inside me, the same thing that made me open that Tor link in the first place, was telling me that whatever the hell Site 3 was, it was somewhere inside that school, and I was going to find it, even if I had to lie, sneak in, and pretend to be a lost PT, a volunteer with a Starbucks cup and an innocent smile. Because if something was happening to those kids, if Emma was being used for something, if that list was what I think it was, I had to know I'm dropping straight in. No reset, no recap, because the next stretch of this story still hits me like a cold hand gripping the back of my neck whenever I think about it, and I've tried not to think about it. Believe me, parent-teacher conferences at Sunnyside feel like every other suburban school event. 2 bright hallways with posters peeling at the corners, the smell of dry expo markers hanging over everything, PTA moms buzzing around with Starbucks cups like caffeinated bees. It should have felt normal, safe. My daughter's finger paintings were taped up right outside. Room 103. Crooked hearts, shaky rainbows, that kind of thing. Each one signed with her huge, uneven letters. But that afternoon, everything felt off. The lights flickered twice when I walked in. The office secretary kept glancing toward the hallway like she was waiting for something, and the school security guard, the same guy who usually looked half asleep, leaning on the trophy case, stood stiff, like he'd been drilled into the floor. And Ms. Holloway, she wasn't herself. I've seen her probably 100 times. Pickup lines, art shows, book fairs. She's always smiling, soft, the type of teacher who kneels to talk to kids at eye level. But when she opened the classroom door to greet me, her smile didn't reach her eyes. And her eyes, God, they looked like she hadn't slept in days. Red rims, pupils a little too big, like she'd stepped out of a hospital room instead of a kindergarten class. "Come in," she said, voice flat, mechanical. Every hair on my arms lifted. She gestured to the tiny table where she usually laid out drawings to show parents, but today it was totally empty. No artwork, no behavior charts, not even her laptop, just a single laminated sheet with the school's floor plan. She slid it toward me, like a waiter delivering the check. "We've been reorganizing," she said, "making space for new programs." Her fingers tapped the map once. Then she looked at me. No, studied me, with this slow scanning motion, like she was checking for something beneath my skin. I forced myself to look down at the floor plan, and that's when my stomach twisted. There, at the bottom of the school blueprint, was a small rectangle labeled Site C Storage. I knew for a fact Sunnyside didn't have a Site C. I'd seen the fire escape maps 100 times. There were 2 wings, a cafeteria, the gym, and the basement boiler room. No Site C, ever. And worse, next to it was a tiny red dot, hand-drawn, fresh, marking it like a treasure map, or a warning. I swallowed. "What's that? Didn't know there was another room?" Ms. Holloway tilted her head like she was listening to something behind the wall. Then she said, "Most parents don't." There was no warmth in her voice, no connection, nothing that made her sound like the teacher my daughter loved. Something was terribly wrong with her, and for one horrible second, I wondered if she somehow knew I'd seen that dark web list, if she could see it in my face, if she knew what was coming. She slid the map back to herself. Then she leaned in, close enough for me to smell something sharp on her breath, bleach, metal, and whispered, "You should go now. Pick up Emma early. There's a rehearsal happening later. It's not for you. Not for me." What the hell does that even mean? Before I could ask, there was a thud somewhere in the hallway. A deep, heavy impact, like someone had dropped a loaded crate. The lights flickered again. Miss Holloway's eyes snapped to the door, glassy and alert. "Go," she whispered, firmer this time. "Before they check attendance." I don't know what messed up instinct in me told me to do it, but I stood like I was sleepwalking and left the classroom. Not because she scared me, though she did, but because something deeper, uglier, colder told me I needed to get out of her sight. But I didn't go to get Emma. I went to the stairwell, the one door in the whole school that always had the maintenance-only sign on it, the one I'd never actually seen used. And today, the sign was gone. Just sticky residue and 2 bright fingerprints smeared near the handle, like someone with wet gloves had pushed through. I checked behind me, hallway empty, and gripped the handle. It was warm. When I pulled it open, the smell rolled out like a wave. Not rot, not sewage, something chemical, sharp, sterilized. The kind of smell you only get in lab rooms sealed with industrial fans. The stairs creaked under my weight. Old wooden steps that shouldn't have belonged under a modern school. The lights were dim, barely there, yellow bulbs screwed into metal piping overhead. The descent felt wrong, longer than it should have been, like the space beneath the school wasn't meant to be there. About halfway down, I noticed something scratched into the wall. Dozens of little marks, carved by either a child or someone desperate. A repeated pattern of short vertical lines, grouped in 5s. Counted days? Attempts? Warnings? I forced myself to keep going. At the bottom of the stairs was a short hallway with concrete walls and a single security camera ticking side to side like an eye trembling. But the door at the end, the one barely cracked open, was the thing that nearly made me turn back. A metal sign hung crooked from its screws. Site C. Authorized staff. Only my pulse hammered so loudly in my ears, it felt like the building itself was beaten. I pushed the door wider. Inside wasn't storage. It wasn't a boiler room. It wasn't anything a school should ever have. Rows of small chairs, the kind kindergartners sit in, were arranged in perfect circles. 4 circles, each one lit by a single hanging bulb, each circle paired with a heavy metal desk filled with binders labeled in thick black marker. Subject Records 103. A. Subject Records 103B. Subject Records 103C. On the far wall hung a corkboard filled with photos. Photos of children, smiling school photos, wet-eyed crying photos. Photos of them sitting alone in those same small chairs, down here, looking confused, and in the corner of each picture, stamped in red ink, compliance review. Pending, my throat tightened. Then, something else. There was sound, a shuffling, slow, muffled, coming from somewhere deeper in the room, behind a half-open partition wall. I stepped closer, heart hammering like it was trying to punch through my ribs. As I neared the partition, the sound grew clearer, a soft, rhythmic tapping, not panicked, not random, intentional, like someone tapping a pencil on a desk. A pattern. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, pause, 3 taps, like a signal. I pushed the partition aside, and in that moment, for the first time in my life, my entire body locked from pure, primal fear, because sitting in that tiny chair, facing the wall, tapping mechanically, was someone wearing a Sunnyside Elementary staff badge. Head lowered, shoulders trembling. Their hair looked familiar. Their posture looked familiar. When they finally lifted their head, the hanging bulb caught their face, but not in a human way, more in a processed way, like someone had drained the emotion out of them and left just the motions behind. It was the school counselor, except not her mouth twitched like she was trying to smile, but couldn't remember how. She whispered something, barely, a breath of a word. Run. Then the partition snapped shut, hard, like something behind it had yanked it out of my hands. I stumbled backward, slamming against the file desk, sending binders crashing to the floor. Pages spilled everywhere. Notes, schedules, diagrams of the school layout, with areas circled in red, lists of target behaviors, and at least one page marked Phase 2. Procedures entirely blacked out. Everything inside me screamed to get out. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time, the scent of that chemical air still clinging to my clothes, my hands shaking so violently I couldn't get a grip on the stair rail. When I reached the top, I didn't breathe until the hallway lights hit my eyes again. But then, something worse. The security guard was standing there, just standing, not blocking me, not speaking, just staring. He tilted his head and said, "You weren't scheduled," like he expected me, like there was a schedule for unauthorized parents entering Site CA. Chill sliced down my spine, so hard my vision blurred. I muttered something, I don't even know what, and brushed past him, forcing my legs to move, even though they felt like they were filled with cement. I found Emma's classroom empty. I found pickup doors closed early, and I found a teacher I didn't recognize escorting a cluster of confused kids down the opposite hall towards some after-school assembly no one had mentioned in any parent email, and Emma wasn't among them. I didn't breathe until I reached the parking lot, and even then, I wasn't sure if I should scream, collapse, or break a window to get someone, anyone, to listen. But the worst part, the school had locked its front doors, all of them, and my daughter was still inside. By the time I reached the parking lot, the wind had changed. It swept across the asphalt in this low, dragging way that felt almost intentional, like the air itself was trying to smother any sound I made, swallowing it before it could travel anywhere useful. The sky over Sunnyside Elementary had gone from its usual dead gray suburban monotony to a kind of bruised metallic blue, the exact shade of a storm that never fully forms, but hangs there like a held breath. I didn't go to my car. I couldn't. My daughter was somewhere inside that building, inside that place, and the school had sealed itself like a bunker. The doors weren't just locked, they were latched, bolted from the inside, reinforced, as if the school wasn't trying to keep danger out, but to keep something in. I tried yanking the front handle anyway. It barely rattled. There was no give, no sound from the inside. The thin vertical windows were dark, not unlit, just black, like someone had laid a film behind them to keep light out. Then the intercom crackled, but no voice came through. Just this low-frequency hum that vibrated through my ribs, like someone plucking a piano wire behind my sternum. The kind of noise you don't just hear, but feel in the enamel of your teeth. The kind that makes your heartbeat stumble. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. At the far end of the parking lot, standing next to the line of faculty cars, was a man in a faded blue cap and a reflective vest, the crossing guard. Except he wasn't holding his sign, wasn't smiling like he always did when kids ran past him. He was just standing perfectly still, facing me, arms stiff at his sides. When he saw me looking, he raised one hand slowly, like someone lifting the arm of a mannequin, and pointed at the school's east side, not waving, not gesturing me over, just pointing, like a warning, or worse, a direction. The east side of Sunnyside is where the gym is, and behind that, the loading bay, where supply trucks usually parked. Kids weren't allowed over there. Parents didn't drop off or pick up from that side. It was just a slab of concrete, dumpsters, and a metal double door for staff only a door that right now was cracked open. No light came from it, just cold. A kind of cold that felt wrong, like stepping close to a freezer door left open too long. Not brisk or refreshing, but empty, as if something inside had pulled all the warmth out of the air instead of cooling it. I don't know why I followed the crossing guard's gesture. Maybe I was too scared to think straight. Maybe part of me hoped Emma had gone out that way. Maybe I was running on pure instinct, the kind you feel right before sleep paralysis hits, when your brain screams to move, but your body lags behind. I walked toward the loading bay. With every step, the hum on the intercom got faintly louder, vibrating through the ground now, like the building was vibrating from the foundation up. My phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was a text from my ex, or a school alert. But no, the screen flashed with a notification from an app I didn't have installed, a black window. White text. Phase 2 has commenced. Then it vanished. Not closed, not minimized. Vanished. I tried reopening recent apps. Nothing. My phone acted like the notification never happened. The loading bay door loomed closer. Wide metal, rust along the hinges, a soft, echoing drip coming from somewhere inside. I hesitated before touching it. Then I heard it. A sound I can't explain in a way that does justice to the way every hair on my arms stood up children singing. Soft, muffled, out of sync, like they were underwater or behind something thick and soundproof, but definitely singing. A melody I didn't recognize. Too slow, too low for a kindergarten class, but their voices were unmistakable, and woven through the melody, spaced like clockwork, were little gasps, not scared gasps, practiced gasps, rehearsed, like breathing cues in a choir. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. Emma was in there. Before I could think, I pushed the door open further. The hallway beyond was pitch black. Not dim, not poorly lit, completely starved of light. Even the emergency strips along the floor were dark. No glow under doors, no exit signs, but something about the dark felt populated, not noisy, not tangible, just aware, as if someone, or many someones, knew I'd stepped inside. I pulled out my phone and flicked on the flashlight. A narrow beam cut into the blackness, catching dust in the air, and something else. Scratches, tiny, countless scratches on the walls, low to the ground, spanning the length of the hall, parallel, uniform, as if hundreds of small hands had dragged along the concrete, not frantically, in formation. The singing dragged on faintly up ahead, echoing off surfaces I couldn't see, warping as if the hallway bent or branched in ways that didn't make sense. Architecturally, I followed it deeper. Every step I took felt slower, like the air itself was getting thick. My flashlight began flickering, not dying, just glitching, casting frantic shadows that jittered along the wall in jerking movements. For 1 second, the beam stuttered, and I saw something at the far end of the corridor. Dull red lights, like the glow of an exit sign, but wrong, lower to the ground, pulsing, almost breathing, and beneath that faint red glow, silhouettes, small silhouettes, children, not moving, not singing, facing the wall, all of them, dozens. They stood in a straight line, spaced evenly apart, hands flat against the concrete, like they'd been told to stay there, like they'd been instructed. Every single one motionless, as if waiting for a cue, or for someone behind me to speak. Even from a distance, their posture wasn't natural. Children don't stand perfectly straight. Kids fidget, shuffle, look around. These didn't. My breath caught in my throat. In that moment, something shifted in the dark behind me. A soft shuffle of a shoe. Adult-sized, deliberate, close. I spun around. My flashlight died completely. Not flickered, not dimmed, just dropped into absolute zero darkness. The singing stopped, all at once, like someone cut a switch. The silence that followed was so total, so suffocating. I swear I could hear my own pulse echoing off the walls. Then, a whisper, not a child's voice, not Miss Holloway, not the counselor. A whisper so close to my ear that a strand of my hair lifted from the breath. You came early. I froze, couldn't turn, couldn't breathe. Then a cold hand, not gripping, just resting, touched the center of my back like someone was politely guiding me toward a table in a restaurant. And the voice whispered again, softer. Phase 2 is not for parents. Something moved past me in the dark, not brushing my clothing, but gliding near me enough that the air shifted. At the far end of the hallway, the red glow brightened suddenly, revealing something that made my knees almost buckle. The children's silhouettes were gone, all of them. The hallway was empty, completely empty, like they'd never been there at all. But the red glow remained, pulsing, steady, beckoning, and beneath that faint glow, on the floor, was something I recognized instantly. Emma's backpack, the unicorn zipper pull. She begged me to buy. The little lavender straps, the patches she stuck on the front, carefully placed in the center of the hall, like a lure, like bait. A message lodged itself into my gut so hard I nearly vomited. She didn't drop it. Someone placed it, for me. And whoever or whatever was in that hallway wasn't done. Not with her. Not with me. Not with Phase 2. Something primal in me, older than reason, older than language, told me not to touch the backpack. And yet, I moved toward it anyway. Not because I wanted to, but because something in the darkness wanted me to. The air felt thicker with each step, like walking into a room where someone has been screaming silently for hours. The hum in the walls had settled into a rhythm now, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat not synced with my own. When I reached the backpack, I crouched down and saw the first wrong detail. There was dust on it. Fine, gray, powdery dust, as if it had been sitting in that hallway for weeks, not minutes. But Emma had brought it to school that morning, meaning one of two things had to be true. Either someone replicated my daughter's backpack perfectly, or the thing I was staring at wasn't from today. Before I could process that thought, a vibration rippled through the floor, a subtle tremor that felt like a massive machine powering on somewhere deep beneath the school foundation. A new sound flooded the hall, a long, low, groaning creak, like a door opening somewhere too heavy to be opened by human hands. I stood up, backing away from the backpack. My shadow stretched unnaturally along the concrete, bending where it shouldn't, like the hallway geometry was warping. The gym was directly ahead. I'd walked past this hallway hundreds of times during pickup hours. Normally, it was filled with colorful posters and student artwork. Tonight, the walls were bare, not freshly cleaned, stripped. The outlines where posters used to be were still visible as lighter rectangles in the dust, like the walls had been abruptly emptied in a hurry. A cold draft swept under the gym doors. That was the worst part. Gym doors don't draft. They're sealed from the top down because of bouncing balls and echoing shrieks. But this draft was strong enough to flutter my shirt. The hum in the walls quickened, not louder, faster, like something inside the building had grown excited or impatient. I pressed my hand to the gym door. It was cold, not freezing, dead. Temperature with no life in it. I pushed. The door opened immediately, like something on the other side had been holding it shut, and suddenly stepped back. And the moment the gym came into view, my breath left my lungs, because the bleachers were full, packed, not with children, not with parents, not with staff, with figures, every single one draped in what looked like black cloth, thick, heavy, textured like fire blankets, their heads covered completely, their bodies unmoving, hundreds of them, filling the bleachers from bottom to top, all facing the empty basketball court like they were waiting for a performance. But the worst part, the part that made my knees lock, was that not a single figure breathed, not a rise, not a shudder, not the tiny shift of weight every living body makes unconsciously. These shapes were still in a way nothing living could mimic. The hum in the floor synchronized with something inside the gym, a low, oscillating noise, vibrating the bleachers, the metal railings, the glass of the trophy case on the far wall. At the center of the basketball court was a circle, a perfect black circle, painted on the gym floor that hadn't been there that morning. The paint was too glossy, too wet, reflecting the overhead lights in this distorted, oily way that made the circle look like it wasn't flat on the surface, but somehow deeper, as if it had depth, as if it wasn't paint at all, but some kind of aperture, a door. My mouth went dry. There were markings around the circle, thousands of tiny lines, branching and intersecting like veins or roots or wiring diagrams. They looked random at first, but the longer I stared, the more it felt like they were shifting, not moving, but changing arrangement depending on how close I stepped. Like the gym wasn't waiting for a performer, it was scanning me. Then, A voice echoed across the gym, childlike, but too amplified, too clear, coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He is here. The figures in the bleachers did not turn, did not react, did not even tilt their heads. But something responded. The circle rippled, like a drop of water had fallen into it. A second ripple, a third. Then the floor beneath my feet vibrated hard enough that dust cascaded from the rafters. Another voice spoke. This one wasn't childlike. It wasn't adult. It wasn't human. It came from beneath the gym, not below the floor, below the foundation. So deep the echo didn't travel upward normally. It wormed its way through the bones of the building, through the steel and concrete, like a tremor. Continue the demonstration. The figures in the bleachers moved, not as a group, not individually. They tilted, all at once, every single one, their heads angled forward like puppets yanked by the same string. The sound of hundreds of stiff cloths shifting filled the gym, slow, synchronized, like the world's worst funeral curtain moving in unison. I stumbled backward. My hand brushed the gym door, and that was when I realized the handle was gone. Not broken, not locked. Gone. Just smooth metal where the handle should have been. Behind me, the gym lights dimmed, not flickered, dimmed deliberately, as if someone was drawing a gradient of darkness down the walls. The voice came again, the childlike one. Closer now, lower now. Subject, guardian, detected. My blood ran cold. Subject, not parent, not intruder. Subject. Proceed with phase 2, alignment. The circle in the center of the gym pulsed. Once, twice. Then it lit up. Not with light, with movement. Something inside the circle shifted, as though something beneath the surface was rising. The blackness thickened, becoming viscous, swirling like a massive lens, adjusting focus. The gym floor trembled, and the figures in the bleachers, they began tapping their hands, hidden under the cloth, hit the wooden seats in unison. Slow at first, rhythmic, growing faster, harder, the entire gym vibrating with it. Tap, 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 taps, tap, tap. A frenzy of hollow wooden impacts. The hum in the walls accelerated to match it, until the two sounds merged into one hideous mechanical pulse. My breath caught, because the tapping wasn't random. It was identical to the tapping pattern I'd heard in Site C earlier. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, pause, 3 taps, a signal, a code, a summons. The circle in the center convulsed, stretching outward like something enormous beneath the surface was pressing upward, distorting the outline, warping the paint, warping the very wood. Then, from somewhere deep inside the building, a small voice cried out, high, faint, muffled. "Daddy!" My heart stopped Emma. She was close, close enough that her voice carried into the gym, but not from the bleachers, not from the hall, not from anywhere a child should be. Her voice came from beneath the circle, inside that impossible opening. My vision wavered. I stepped forward instinctively, and the figures in the bleachers snapped their heads toward me, every single one. The cloth hoods didn't shift, but I could feel it. Hundreds of unseen eyes locking onto my body, all at once. That was when the truth hit me so hard, I nearly collapsed. The assembly wasn't for the children, it was for me. And whatever was in that circle, whatever the school had been preparing, whatever phase 2 meant, it wasn't finished. It was waiting for me to step closer, for me to complete whatever role they'd assigned me without my knowledge, for me to become part of this thing the school had been building beneath everyone's noses. And Emma was in there, not hurt, not crying, not begging, just saying one small word. One word that wasn't frightened. One word that sounded rehearsed, like someone had taught her how to say it the exact way they wanted. "Daddy." The circle pulsed again. The gym lights went out, and I realized, too late, that I wasn't alone in the dark anymore. Something had stepped between me and the exit, and it was breathing, slow, steady, patient, like it had all the time in the world. The darkness in the gym didn't feel like normal darkness. Normal darkness still has air to breathe, space to move, a faint sense of distance. This darkness felt compressed, tight, a glove closing around my head, squeezing until my thoughts started to flicker. Something shifted in front of me. Not a step, not a movement, just a presence, becoming aware that I was aware of it. A slow exhale rolled across my face, cold, steady, like someone leaning inches from my skin. The bleachers behind me creaked all at once, not violently, just tilting, as if hundreds of heads inside those shrouds had angled slightly to watch what would happen next. The hum in the walls stopped, total silence. Then a sound rose beneath the gym floor. Not a growl, not a voice, something worse. A low, dragging scrape, like stone grinding against something softer, slower than bone, but faster than soil. A sound with no business being under a school. The circle on the floor lit from below, not with light, with movement. Shadows roiled inside it, sliding past one another like eels in black water, shapes that stretched far too long before snapping back into themselves. The surface rippled outward, distortion waves spreading to the gym's edges. The paint was no paint. It was an opening, and something behind it was climbing upward. A faint glow, far beneath the surface, grew brighter. Red at first, then white, then colorless. A brightness not like a lamp or flame, a brightness that felt alive. The figures in the bleachers began tapping again, but slower this time. Measured, reverent. Tap, tap, tap. A ritual beat, a summons, a welcome. The surface of the circle bulged, like a bubble rising through the floor. The shapes inside changed direction, swirling toward the center as if pulled by a drain. The glow intensified until the shadows under the gym rafters danced like frantic hands. My knees nearly buckled, not from fear, from the air itself thickening, growing heavy enough to push against my ribs, pressing my lungs inward. My chest collapsed around itself until every breath felt like inhaling warm coins. Something inside the circle whispered my name. Not a voice, not sound. A thought, placed inside my skull, perfectly calm. Come down. My entire spine froze. No one should ever hear their own name without hearing it. The floorboards beneath the circle bent inward, timbers warping like they'd turned soft. The black surface cracked open. No, tore open, from the center outward. And for the first time, I saw what was beneath. Not a room, not a basement, not anything built by human beings. A pit, a deep, impossible cavern that stretched further than any structure should. Like the foundation of the school was just a thin shell over something ancient, something that had been there long before Sunnyside existed. Shapes moved below, lit by that unnatural glow. Tall silhouettes, thin, bent. Their limbs were wrong, their joints reversed, their proportions slightly off, like someone sculpted humans from memory, but got the details wrong. Their faces, God, they weren't faces, just smooth planes with shallow impressions where eyes and mouths should be. Not blank, not empty, waiting. They stared up, at me, at my outline in the gym doorway, at my silhouette against the circle's opening. at the position I was standing in, as if I'd stepped directly onto a mark on a stage they had prepared. Then, from the center of that impossible cavern, a figure rose. Not one of the tall ones, not a staff member, not a child. Something else, something that shouldn't exist. It rose like smoke being pulled upward, forming a shape that wasn't solid, but wasn't vapor either. A silhouette that kept trying to settle into a human form, but couldn't quite hold it. Limbs sliding in and out of alignment, head twisting slowly, reorganizing itself to match something. And as it rose, I saw a small shape beside it, a smaller silhouette, child-sized, not struggling, not resisting, just holding the taller figure's hand. My throat closed. My vision shrank to a pinhole. I whispered, "Emma," barely audible. The small silhouette tilted its head, and for a moment, for one horrifying, bone-shattering moment, the cavern lit enough for me to see her face. Not hurt, not scared, just staring. Eyes too wide, pupils massive, jaw slack, expression slack, like she wasn't asleep, not awake, just empty, a vessel. Something spoke from below, not with a voice, with a vibration that rattled my teeth. The Guardian presents itself. The bleacher figures leaned forward in perfect unison. Phase 3 may begin. The monstrosity beside Emma extended its hand toward me, slowly, palms up, like offering a ritual object. Its fingers stretched too long for a human hand, bending delicately like they were trained for fine motor skills they had no right to possess. My feet slid forward, not stepping, dragged, not physically, willed. The gym floor seemed to tilt imperceptibly, pulling me toward the circle. Every instinct I had, the fight, the scream, the run, died, not suppressed, removed, like someone unplugged them. All that remained was a thin strand of thought. She needs me. Not logical, not rational, just overwhelming. The glowing figure reached higher. The circle widened, and in the reflection of that impossible aperture, I saw not the gym, not the bleachers, not the school at all, but a place that looked like the underside of a world, a vast cavern lined with structures that were not buildings, but growths, pulsing shapes, organized, structured, alive, an entire system waiting beneath the surface, a network, a hive. And I understood. Sunnyside wasn't unique. Sunnyside was one node, one point in a web that extended far beneath towns and cities. This wasn't about children. This wasn't about school programs. This wasn't about staff being corrupted. This was about replacements, upgrading, integrating. Integrating what? I didn't know. I didn't want to know. Emma's small hand reached up from below, fingers stretching through the surface of the circle, not touching the floor, but slipping through it like the boundary wasn't real, not liquid, not solid, a membrane. "Daddy," she whispered again, not fearful, not pleading, just inviting. Behind me, something placed a hand on my shoulder, heavy, firm, calm. A voice whispered, not loud, not threatening, just quiet enough to sink in. "Your purpose is accepted. Complete the transition." The cavern roared. The circle widened. Emma's hand reached higher. Something deep inside me broke. A sound I didn't recognize tore from my throat. A sob, a gasp, maybe both. I clawed backward, fighting whatever was guiding me forward. It didn't stop me. It didn't need to. It could wait. It had all the time in the world. And then, the fire alarm went off. A shrill, blaring scream that cut through the gym like a blade. Not from anyone inside. Not pulled by any hand. Triggered automatically by some part of the building that still belonged to human standards. The circle reacted violently, collapsing inward, the shadows ripping away from each other. The glow dimmed, the cavern blurred, the silhouettes below convulsed like static on old TV screens. Emma's hand flickered, then vanished. The force pulling me forward snapped. I fell backwards so hard, the gym floor cracked beneath me. The bleacher figures collapsed in unison, slumping like puppets dropped from their strings, hoods falling loose to reveal. Not faces, not heads, nothing. Empty cloth sacks filled with dust. The gym lights blazed back on. The circle was gone. Just wood, just floor, just the painted mascot, silence. Except, at the very edge of the gym, half hidden behind the equipment closet door, something small lay on the ground. A hair tie lavender, with a tiny plastic unicorn charm. My daughter's, still warm, as if it had been removed moments ago, as if she'd been standing there, as if someone had led her away the instant the alarm triggered. I crawled toward it, chest shaking, vision tearing itself apart with adrenaline. I picked it up, everything inside me hollowed, because written, burned, into the floor beneath where it had fallen were tiny words. Phase 2, complete. Phase 3, delayed, parental asset, unretrieved. The alarm cut off. The lights flickered once. Then the intercom whispered, softly, almost apologetically, "We will continue at a later time." And the school doors unlocked. I never found Emma. Not in the days after. Not in the weeks. Not in the months of searches, interviews, and police reports. The school shut down for renovations. The staff disappeared. The building was demolished. But sometimes, late at night, when the house settles and the hum of the refrigerator hits a certain frequency, I hear it again. Tap, tap, tap. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Coming from under the floorboards, from somewhere deeper than basements exist. And every time, every single time, a small voice echoes faintly up through the vents. "Daddy."